Pop's Daylight Donuts, man, they've got the best tasting donuts, sausage wraps, pastries in Northeast Oklahoma. And also, if you'll tell the staff there, hey, Scott Townsend said to give me a large spicy pig, they'll give you a free large spicy sausage wrap. But you have to tell them Scott Townsend sent you. So tell them, hey, Scott Townsend told me to tell you to give me a large spicy pig. So there's the offer. There's the call to action. So go to Pop's Daylight Donuts. Say hi to Mark for me. And go to Pop's Daylight Donuts and get you some.
Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Diesel Man Productions.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for joining the Scott Townsend Show. And today I have with me two special guests, former colleagues, Carmen Neagu and Bill Robertson with Mettler, Toledo. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you, Scott?
Doing really good. Really good. Carmen's from, you're down in Houston? And
Houston.
Bill is over in Atlanta, right?
Correct.
So what's the weather like in Atlanta?
It's actually kind of chilly today. It's unseasonably cool, maybe 45 degrees, but clear skies.
That's good. It's
Should
clear
warm
over
up.
here. Yeah, it's clear over here. Sunshine, blue sky. Carmen, what's the weather like in Houston?
I think I'm still better in here with the sunny weather and close to 80 degrees. So I'm good.
That's great. Well, I invited Carmen and Bill on the show today. We were talking about safety and quality on different products, and the topic came up about the products that Bill and Carmen offer up. And safety is such a huge. It seems like the older I get, the more important it is to me. But the other day I was grilling salmon, actually, and this has never happened to me before. But I put too much olive oil in the pan, and I had it on the grill, and I went to flip the salmon steak, and the pan tipped towards me. The hot olive oil hit the fire. The fire just blew up, and it got on my hand, and I was wearing shorts, and it got on my leg, and stuff. And my wife was like, "Let me go get some water." I was like, "No, don't put water on a grease fire." But I had a fire extinguisher next to the grill, and I didn't have to use it. I just let it burn itself out, But I was really irritated with myself for letting that situation happen. And thankfully, that's all that happened, and no burns, really. Just it was amazing. No burns, really. But when you're looking at processes and procedures where products and things are made, things are produced, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and you don't want those things to go wrong. You want the product to come out on the end in good shape, high quality, without hurting an employee or hurting a manufacturing process that's going to cost you a lot of money. So that's a long introduction. So I'm setting you guys up here. So Carmen, tell us a little bit about, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about the gas analyzers. And remember, Einstein said, if you can't explain something in very simple terms, then you probably don't know the process very well. So you're talking to me, and I'm a third of the class that made the top 2/3 possible. So just if you can get me to understand it, then pretty much everybody else will understand it. Tell me about the gas analyzers that you guys are using, and what problem does it solve, and the safety behind it. Go ahead.
So first of all, I'm glad that you're into what's called molecular gastronomy, when you're just cooking and you're trying to make something out of something.
Right.
And so safety is very important. It's not just at home, it's work, it's process. Everybody now, and if you don't pay attention to safety and don't, focus on safety, everything else doesn't matter, right? No matter how much you produce, no matter how good your product is, if you hurt people and you get into this type of incidents, right, there, nothing else matters. So safety is in everybody's mind. So with gas analytics, and I have to say that I'm very proud and happy. I'm with a company that, values safety as so much. And this inspires our customers, inspires me, inspires all our, employees, not just to focus on the safety by, introducing products related to safety, but also, inspires the customers, and we're considered a trusted advisor for them when we offer something that is related to safety, process control. And the gas analytics, the TDL technology is not that old. It's, I would say, 40 years. Yes, 40 years for a younger generation is old, right? They see a 40 years old person, they said, oh, it's an old man, it's an old woman. And 40 years is not much as far as, technology, but evolved so much and so quickly in these 40 years. And Mettler Toledo is one of the companies that, wanted to provide the best product that, not only, performs process-wise, easy to use, but also to resolve some of the problems, some of the applications that are, paramount for our customers. So you're asking me about the TDL technology. What is it? In a nutshell, is a laser that shines through the sample, interacts with the sample, in this case, a gas sample, multiple components sample, and returns back a signal to the detector. And that detector interprets it as a spectrum. And that spectrum actually for us is either used for control, process control, or for quantification purposes. Either is ppm levels or concentration levels, depending on what the customer is looking for.
So Bill, I'll kick it over to you here just for a second. Can you, Mettler Toledo, I was not familiar with Mettler Toledo, and I nor should I be, because I'm not in the market for anything like that. But when I found out about it, then it's kind of like when you buy a red car and then you drive and you notice all these other red cars, So when I was in the UPS store the other day returning something, the scales in front of me said Mettler Toledo. And I've been in that store, how many times? I never noticed that. And so I guess Mettler Toledo is kind of in a weights and measures.
Correct.
Can you kind of give us an idea of Mettler Toledo and what you guys do overall?
Absolutely. That is definitely our biggest division, weights and measures. So everything from the UPS store where you were to if you go to the deli in a grocery store, 9 times out of 10, the scales in the deli are Mettler Toledo. But we do huge industrial scales and weighing. But our division that Carmen and I are in is the process analytics division. And just as Carmen is the business development manager for gas analytics, I am tasked with water and growing our business with what's called pure or ultra pure water system fabricators, typically found in the pharmaceutical industry. I don't know if you've ever heard of Wi-Fi water, but it's water for injection. And also in the semiconductor industry, which requires very, very pure water to get more and more product on these microchips. So those are the two big industries where I spend a lot of my time is working with the system fabricators that supply purified water skids to life sciences and semiconductor.
So you brought up Wi-Fi water. So I'll go there. So what is Wi-Fi water?
Okay, Wi-Fi, WFI, stands for water for injection.
Okay.
So you can imagine that you do not want any kind of contaminants in a syringe you're injecting in your body.
Which is a big topic right now because everybody's getting these vaccines. And so the vaccines that everybody's taking now and is all consumed with, we all know that there's stuff in there that's going to help us. But the one thing you don't think about is there's a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be in there. And so I guess it's you guys and your products that help keep vaccines, shots, injections as pure. What's the difference between pure and ultra pure?
So pure water, it's mandated by what's called the USP, the United States Pharmacopoeia. And if you think of USP as the Congress, they're a not-for-profit company, but they basically make the laws. And then the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is kind of like the police. They enforce the laws. So in certain applications, you need either purified water, WIFI water, water for injection, or like in semiconductor, ultra pure water, which has measurements down as low as 0.5 ppb or parts per billion. So you can imagine, as far as the conductivity goes. So you can imagine detection limits that low require a very stable analyzer. And where Mettler Toledo on the water side excels is in making real-time measurements for conductivity, which is mandated by the US Pharmacopoeia in test chapter 645, and total organic carbon, which is mandated by the US Pharmacopoeia in test chapter 643. But instead of taking an offline sample and taking it to the lab, where Mettler Toledo succeeds is doing it in real time. So think of it as looking at a picture versus watching a movie. If you can constantly see the results of your water all the time, then you're not going to miss an upset condition between manually taking a sample back to the lab.
Which gives you, from an alarming system, you don't, if you get an alarm 2 minutes later or 3 minutes later, that could be a problem because the problem's been going on for 3 minutes. But if you have a situation that you're on top of instantly, that saves a lot of heartache for the manufacturer and for the product.
Exactly, because the last thing anyone wants to have to do is have a product recall. And so, we provide analyzers that ensure that the water is as pure as it was when it went out to the points of use. So, and then, we comply with those 2 test chapters I mentioned earlier from the US Pharmacopoeia. And really, we've been in the business for a long time. The water side of the business traces its history back to 1964, when Dr. Richard Thornton, an MIT professor, actually came up with conductivity sensors. And he formed Thornton Incorporated in 1964. Then in 2001, Mettler Toledo acquired Thornton and integrated their ultra pure water analyzers into the process analytics division.
So Carmen, I'll turn over to you just for a second here. So I've got a manufacturing facility, a refining situation. So where do your products fit within the process? And I guess oxygen is, we breathe oxygen. Oxygen lets me live. It's all good. But sometimes oxygen's not so good. So tell me a little bit about what your analyzers do and that nasty problem with oxygen.
You're completely right. You're very right when you're saying, oxygen can make you or break you, right? Oxygen we breathe sustains life. But when you're talking about the product, the process control in general, oxygen is a bad thing for two reasons. One, the safety control reason would be the oxygen can induce an explosion if it's out the ranges, specified. And oxygen also can degrade a component because, can help to, forming other unwanted or byproducts. Oxygen then can degrade, can decompose a product very quickly. So when we're talking about refining, if you're looking at the all important units in the refinery, for example, fluid cracking catalyst, FCC for short, right? We're looking at, oxygen, we're looking at the CO2, right? Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, they're very important parameter to analyze. When you go into the reformate, right? Reforming, catalyst reforming, right? The catalyst, if it gets in contact with oxygen, can degrade, right? So the quality of the catalyst degrades or lowers, inducing to a poor quality product, right? Hydrogen, for example, hydrogen formation or hydrogen production, very important. So we're looking at oxygen, we're looking to CO2. Sometimes moisture comes in place, and moisture can be a big problem for us. So all these little molecules, right, components of a stream can be favorable and unfavorable to a process.
And so it's the TDL that alerts you, gives you the notification that we're favorable, everything's good. Oops, stop, something's wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. So TDL has, compared to any other technologies, TDL doesn't drift. This laser that is perfectly, aligned and it's perfectly calibrated, that doesn't need additional calibrations in the future, right? Will tell you exactly the concentration of that particular molecule you want to analyze, or you want to just monitor for safety purposes or for process control in general.
Yeah. So, and like Bill was talking about a while ago, instead of sampling and conditioning, instead of taking it through a process to analyze and wasting, well, not really wasting, but I mean, it's kind of like, it is wasting now because yours can instantly detect, whereas before they had to kind of sample a piece, look at it, and that takes time. And by the time you realize something was wrong, some time's gone by, and that could be a problem. Exactly.
So this is where we come in a play. So offering a solution that analyzes in seconds continuously, and with an analyzer that you don't have to take it down all the time and troubleshoot or service it, or take care of the reagents, expensive reagents. They're not very cheap compared to other technologies that are not so fast. Looking at the paramagnetic oxygen, it's a very slow technology. So this way we can just get in front of the competition and say, we have something that we can put in situ, right there in the process. We don't need a sampling system. We don't need to condition the sample in order to make that measurement.
That's awesome. Bill, so I'm going to start a brewery, and you and I are going into business. So I want to make sure that my customers, does that sound like a good idea?
Absolutely.
Just sign me up too, please, Scott.
So I'm setting you up here. I got this brewery that we're going to install. And so we want to make sure that, the beer that's coming out on the other end is like right on the money and it's consistent. So the same bottle they buy today is going to be the same bottle they buy 2 months from now. People are very particular, beer drinkers, craft beer drinkers. I mean, they're all into it and they don't want anybody messing around. I mean, they don't even think about it until someone does mess around with it, and then you're out, How does your products, where do your products fit in the system there to make sure that quality is always spot on?
So just as Carmen was mentioning oxygen on the gas side, dissolved oxygen is a bad actor in craft beer or any kind of beer. So where we would measure is either we have a portable dissolved oxygen meter, or we have a dedicated dissolved oxygen meter with a can piercer that can measure down to very low parts per billion how much dissolved oxygen is in the beer. Because another important thing, especially with craft beer, is distribution. You want to be able to sell the craft beer beyond just the town you live in. But once you put it on the shelf, there is a certain shelf life before the beer, ages and gets kind of a skunky flavor, which is directly correlated to how much dissolved oxygen is in the beer. So we provide craft breweries with a can piercer that takes a sample, gives them a readout of how much dissolved oxygen is in a batch of beer, and they can compare that batch to batch to batch to ensure that the shelf life of their beer is as long as possible, so their distribution of the craft beer can be as wide as possible.
And then be the same taste from
exactly
case to case. Yeah. And there's other applications besides just beer. I just picked on that one because everybody could probably relate to that one. But, you guys do water, wherever there's any kind of water introduction, or there needs to be analysis where liquids are concerned.
Correct. So whether it's pH, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, ozone is very active these days as a cleaning agent. We have a ozone analyzer, and then the hottest thing right now, just like I was mentioning earlier about the real-time online TOC or total organic carbon analyzer. What's all the water system fabricators and a lot of the pharmaceutical companies are very interested in online real-time microbial analysis of the water. So again, think of it like a movie instead of a picture. The current methodology involves taking the water back to a lab and doing a plate count to understand what's called a CFU, or a colony forming unit, is in the water. Well, what the 7,000 RMS that Mettler Toledo manufactures, it actually generates what's called AFUs, actual fluorescent units. So think of it as a city. We'd have the colony of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. We'd have the colony of Houston, Texas, and we'd have the colony of Atlanta, Georgia. So a CFU analyzer can tell you you have 3 colonies, but the AFU can tell you the actual population of Bartlesville versus Houston versus Atlanta. And again, it can do it in real time. A lot of industry is very, very interested in this technology. It's also referred to as bioburden, and it's definitely getting a lot of attention right now, both from the US Pharmacopoeia, the European Pharmacopoeia, all the global pharmacopoeias, as well as several of the water system fabricators are very interested in being able to real-time monitor the microbial content of the water versus the dated practice of plate counting in a lab.
Carmen, as far as the tunable diode laser, how easy is it? Easy to install? What's the process there? Is it what's the advantage?
Yes, actually, it's very easy to install. It takes less than a half a day. It's in situ, as I mentioned before, and it's just installing the probe inside a tank, inside the process, or installing a wafer on a pipe. So it's not much to it. It's the TDL. It's already calibrated by the factory, so the customer doesn't have to do anything.
You were explaining this to me the other day, and I kind of likened it. It sounded like to install it, it's almost like a heart bypass surgery. You build a little bypass so that you can shut that piece off, and then install the gas analyzer, and then let it flow back through after you're through. Yes. Is that right?
Yes, it's right. I mean, we don't have to shut down the whole process.
No.
That's the beauty of this technology. We can, if it's a turnaround time for the customer to shut down the whole process, it's okay, but we don't have to do that. So we can just install our TDL in a bypass type, bypass surgery of the analyzer. I like that, Scott.
So with the COVID going on right now, and we're close to being out of the woods, so to speak. We've got the vaccine in full force, and people are lining up. Where does Mettler Toledo fall in that whole process from a pharmaceutical position?
Scott, that's a very good point. The other day I just put something on LinkedIn that we have to just wear these masks, and when Mettler Toledo, I would say that has this opportunity to help pharma companies with the drugs, not just like a COVID vaccines drugs, but also with all the drugs that are coming into the market, and all these giants are making, extremely, extreme efforts to come back with a solution. So what we can do, we measure actually oxygen for blanketing applications for active ingredients.
So explain blanketing real quick. Blanketing gas, I think is the phrase. What is that?
So in order to make, a good product and a pure product, you have to maintain a very low oxygen. So I mentioned before that oxygen can just degrade the component. So sometimes oxygen and water, introduce a new unwanted byproducts, right? We want to keep water and oxygen out of the equation as much as possible, so we can deliver as far as pharma company from the customer point of view, so they can deliver a great product. Like Bill mentioned, the police, FDA is coming, and you have to respond to this regulatory actions. So oxygen can ignite. If that ignition is possible because of the static potential, because of the dust accumulation, right? You have to just maintain a blanket of nitrogen, I would call it, right? So you have to maintain that nitrogen coming into the reactor to remove the oxygen. So that's what the nitrogen blanketing is.
Okay. So it looks like we're right up on our time here. Bill, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, I just thank you for having both of us on. We'd love to do this again on a different subject matter. Thank you for your time.
Hey, you bet. Carmen, if anyone's interested in anything they've heard today, and I'm sure they are and want more information, where would they go to get more information about gas analyzers, TDLs, sensors? Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much for having us and taking the time to speak with us. And we're a fans of your show. We've been watching you all this time, so it's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Thank you.
So they can go to mt.com, mettlertoledo.com. So process analytics, under process analytics, gas analytics section, which is my section I'm looking over, or send an email to me directly, carmen.neagu@mt.com.
And Bill, if for more information about your products, the water fabrication systems, where would they go?
Absolutely. So same thing, mt.com, and just search for water, or feel free to send me an email at bill.robertson, ROBERTSON, @mt.com.
So I'll put all that information in the show notes below on the podcast and on the YouTube channel for anybody that needs more information. Make it easy for them to get there. So, well, thanks, guys. That was really interesting, educational, and keep up the good work.
We thank
Awesome.
you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Carmen.
So for Carmen and Bill, Carmen Neagu and Bill Robertson, this is Scott Townsend. Have a great day. Thanks for joining the Scott Townsend Show, and we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Deetso Man production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.